It's time!
Hey, Dave, listen up, please.
Scotty, that's a great question. I got a question for you, though, Scotty. You know that there's other players on our team besides Desi.
But what are you waiting for?
I don't know, something amazing.
Jones for three, and he banks it in.
Bailey, up and in, and a chance for three.
Six. He's dancing. Smith is there. Accelerates. No! Rebound, Notte. That's it. Arkansas is going to the Sweet 16.
Oh, how sweet it is indeed. Seth Campbell joined by Scottie Bordelon, and we are going to break it down as Arkansas reaches the Sweet 16 for the first time, Scotty, since 1996. I can guarantee you when the Razorbacks went in 96, people were not expecting it to take 25 years for them to get back.
No doubt.
But it did. But the Razorbacks have reached that promised land. And in the weirdest of years, Arkansas has indeed reached the Sweet 16, and they get a matchup against ORU. I would say favorable there. Because you could be playing a team that, you know, is the number 2 seed in Ohio State or even Florida, which was the 7. But instead of that, you get to play the team that beat both of those teams. So there is a little bit of anxiousness there. Arkansas has already beaten ORU, so we'll dive into that. We're going to dive into the fact of that some people in the national media, Scotty, this week, they had some pretty bad takes. And we're going to dive into it a little bit deeper. It's one thing to have some bad takes. It's another thing to take some shots at a place that you and I call home. And so we're going to dive just a little bit into that, talk about those takes and where they went wrong. We're not going to necessarily rail the person because if we went back and looked at every single bad take that I had, we would have a few. But we are going to talk about that. And then we're going to preview Arkansas's matchup against ORU. But first, Scotty, that game against Texas Tech was an all-time thriller.
Man, it was great. And I was covering the game from my living room, and I have the live stats pulled up, like the stat broadcast on my laptop, and that is about 30 to 35 seconds ahead of what's showing on the TV. And so my mom is over, she's watching, she brought gumbo over, God bless her. So I had that before the game, and my wife is also in the living room, and they're watching the game, and as soon as I see something happen on stat broadcast, I'm writing a note about it for the live updates. And so I'm seeing it like before they see it. I know what's going to happen before they see it on TV, and it was pretty fun to see their reactions, especially in the last few minutes of the game. It was really fun. But you pointed out that this has been the strangest year imaginable. But I think Arkansas deserves a lot of credit because even in like a year full of uncertainty, season full of just question marks, Arkansas has been one of the more stable teams in the country. Like I know Eric Musselman missed a game early in the year, but it wasn't because he had COVID, and just some contact tracing stuff. And then there was the Jalen Williams thing happened around the SEC tournament. But other than that, Arkansas has gotten through this whole season just pretty much unscathed. Like from the beginning of the season until now, there hasn't been many, bumps in the road for Arkansas that have just nothing that has like derailed the team at all. And I don't think a lot of other teams in the country can say that. So props to Arkansas for getting to this point, with minimal obstacles to get through other than the team you're playing.
Yeah, the obstacles, like you said, Jalen Williams not being there, and then playing without Justin Smith. Is this team as good as it is right now if they didn't have to play without Justin Smith and realize how crucial he is to this team? Because before the beginning of January, when Arkansas lost to Alabama, lost to LSU, and played without Justin Smith, I didn't know how valuable Justin Smith was to this team. There's some people in Indiana that definitely didn't know how valuable Justin Smith was to this team. But I think it just shows you how the evolution of this team has come. Jalen Williams didn't even play against ORU in the first time Arkansas played them. Devo Davis played 8 minutes. Now Devo Davis is locking down one of the best scorers in the entire country to where he doesn't even touch the ball on his team's last possession with an opportunity to go up.
Yeah, he didn't touch the ball in the last minute.
Like, that's why you play 30 games throughout a season, because you have to figure those things out. And Arkansas played the least amount of players that they've played all season in a game to go to the Sweet 16. I mean, there's just so many things that you have to figure out as you go down the road, and Arkansas has done that and done it well, in my opinion.
Yeah, what I meant earlier was totally COVID related, because the Justin Smith injury was a huge obstacle that Arkansas had to get through.
Right.
But credit to him for, he saw that Arkansas was not the same team without him. And I think at that point, Justin kind of realized how valuable he really was to this team, and how he's the glue. Like, you can talk about how you use different phrases like glue guy, or he kind of holds things together, and that in some ways that can be code for this guy's not real good, but every once in a while he can be a difference maker. Justin Smith is kind of redefining glue guy for Arkansas anyway, and he's playing like a pro right now. Like, he scored, so going into the Texas Tech game, he had scored 20 plus points in back-to-back games for the first time in his career. And then against Texas Tech, he scored 20 again. And he did it on 9 of 11 shooting. And that's not even the full story of his game. Like, on the defensive side, when he was the nearest defender to a Texas Tech shot, they were 3 of 17 from the floor. Wow. And 1 of 13 shooting inside the three-point line. Justin Smith is making himself some money. Like, even since the postseason started, he's been lights out. He's team dad, had another phenomenal, flawless second half offensively. He went 5 for 5 in the second half against Texas Tech. So he's shooting like over 75% in the second half of their last 10 or 11 games. He's been unbelievable, and it's funny in hindsight to go back and listen to some of the things that Indiana people have said about Justin Smith, because sometimes it was like just the Justin Smith-Indiana relationship got stale, and he broke free from it, and he's got a new situation, and he's thriving now. And sometimes all you need is like a change of scenery,
right?
And a coach that knows how to best utilize you, and you can thrive. And he looks like a completely different player. I mean, his defense is. When Justin Smith came here, I talked to an Indiana guy. He said the place that the Hoosiers were going to miss him most was defensively. Justin's been phenomenal defensively, and he's given you 17 points a game over the last month when it really, really matters. That's a guy he's going to make a lot of money really soon.
I'd say so. He's definitely going to play somewhere professionally if it doesn't work out in the NBA. But like you said, he's playing like a pro. And he's been a huge difference maker for the Hogs. Another, just something that I thought was interesting, Scotty, is the fact of Moses Moody, while not being the Arkansas's leading scorer in Arkansas's first 2 games, he created his shot a little bit more than I thought I've seen all season long. One of the ones that really sticks out in my mind is against Texas Tech. He had the ball on the left wing and created off of the dribble. I mean, it was like a 2-step turnaround J from the elbow, and he drilled it. I think that's just the steady evolution of Moses, and he's not going to come back for next year. But if he did, like, the evolution of Moses Moody would be one that would be really cool to watch and see how he would grow. You're just going to have to do that with him wearing another jersey besides Arkansas,
right?
Because he's going to the NBA draft. He's a lottery pick now for sure. I think he's cemented that with taking Arkansas to the Sweet 16. He's got 5 tools, and he can use them and utilize them. And I think that it's just been interesting to see him be able to create that shot.
Yeah, against Texas Tech, I did the shot catalog for each guy not long after the game was over. His first shot, off the bounce mid-range jumper from the right elbow, nailed it. Third shot, off the bounce mid-range from the right corner, nailed it. in the second half, off the bounce mid-range from the left elbow, nailed it. And then his last 2 shots, off the bounce mid-range from the left elbow, nailed it. That was when Texas Tech was making their mad comeback later in the game. And then his last bucket, off the bounce 3 from the right wing. So
was that the one he banked in?
Yeah, that was five buckets off the bounce.
Some people believe that.
And he's an elite catch and shoot guy, but he gives you 5 buckets off the dribble. How are you going to defend him?
You're not?
Yeah.
I mean, truthfully.
Next to impossible.
Truthfully, you're not. Side note, some people think that Arkansas was under a curse, right? Ever since the Nolan stuff. And Texas Tech banks in that 3, and you could almost hear, I was watching the game by myself with my wife, but you could hear almost like a groan from all of Razorback Nation of, are you kidding me?
Yeah, seen this before.
This is going to happen again. And I don't know, this could come back to bite Arkansas in the butt, but it almost seems like Moses broke the curse because he comes right back down and banks in a 3, and you're like, okay, the curse is broken.
Mm-hmm.
This is going to happen. And Razorback fans started believing again. So I think that was just a funny aside. But
it's poetic that an Arkansas kid did it.
Yes. It almost like it needed to be an Arkansas kid for the curse to be broken. That's
by a kid named Moses of all people, of all names.
He's taking Arkansas to the promised land. Yeah, the atmosphere at Hinkle looks amazing. Obviously, Scottie and I are not there. It looks like a really cool place to play. A unique place to play with the fact that it has windows.
Yeah, I'm glad Arkansas didn't get a time slot where the sun was like beating down on one end of the floor.
Yeah, that would be really unfortunate. But it does have windows. Arkansas is not going to play there. They're going to play at the home of the Pacers, where they played their first game against Colgate. So that's kind of unique. Arkansas's got a little experience in that arena. I haven't looked and see where ORU played their games. But Sweet 16 games are going to be played at Hinkle and at the Pacers' place. And then all Elite 8 games are moving to Lucas Oil Stadium. And they'll be played because Lucas Oil has 2 courts. They don't play simultaneously, but they have 2 courts set up on either end zone. All Elite 8 games, Final 4, and then the championship will be played there. All right, Arkansas, ORU. But before we put this Texas Tech game to rest, Musselman was a little irate. Or not irate, I think he was almost satisfied at the ending to the Texas Tech game because of something that somebody in the national media said. And I think that you ride a fine line here, Scotty, from giving somebody attention that he doesn't deserve, right?
Yeah.
And also bringing up something that has literally been a part of most Razorback fans' experience in this NCAA tournament. So we're not going to necessarily run this and spend 30 minutes on it. But I think that when you have a coach that gets on a post-game press conference and says this,
yeah, I take it personal.
You have to bring it up a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
What Musselman is talking about here, we'll play the clip for y'all. This is a CBS analyst. There's a former sports bettor. He made the lines. There's a word for that, but I can't remember off the top of my head. And this is what he's saying.
I'm going to make a case for Texas Tech here. When I look at the head coaches in this game, I think it's one of the biggest mismatches we're going to see in the round of 32. We talked going into the game against Utah State, what Chris Beard's record looked like during the NCAA tournament. Well, he has to be licking his chops knowing that Eric Musselman will be on the other sideline.
I don't have a problem picking Texas Tech. Chris Beard is a fantastic coach. He's never lost in the first round of the NCAA tournament. His team plays really good defense, which Arkansas plays better defense, which you wouldn't know by listening to the announcers.
We'll
but they
talk
do.
about that later, yeah.
And we will. The thing that I think Razorback fans took offense to, which, by the way, Razorback fans can get in a mob on Twitter. If you haven't seen that over the past week, they can straight up pitchforks.
Don't go after Arkansas or fans. Like, that is not going to ever end well for you.
Yeah, they come at you with pitchforks and everything else. But Arkansas, I think what makes Arkansas fans angry is that he took a shot at Eric Musselman and his coaching ability.
Right.
And Musselman has not shown a lack of coaching ability really since I've seen him in college. Maybe there's a few opportunities, but everybody's human. But I think the fact of Chris Beard is just that much better of a coach, and he's licking his chops at this matchup. I think that's what set Razorback fans off, and I think it's not a great take.
I didn't understand it. Like, why was that going to be one of the biggest coaching miss? Like, I just don't understand like the genesis of that thought.
Right.
I just don't get it. Because it's not like Eric Musselman doesn't have any NCAA tournament success on his resume.
The dude coached in the NBA.
He coached in the NBA, but he also took a mid-major in Nevada to the Sweet 16, had like a couple of just unbelievable comebacks. Do bad coaches bring their teams back from 20 down to win NCAA tournament games?
No.
And he brought his team back from double digits in the first round. And then won by, more than covered the spread, even though he got down 14 in the first half. And
won 85-68.
I just don't understand the thought process there. It didn't make me, like that kind of stuff doesn't make me mad.
Right.
It doesn't make me mad, but it was really tough to follow the train of thought that led to him saying that. It just didn't make sense. Why would Chris Beard be licking his chops when he looks at Arkansas's sideline and sees Eric Musselman?
Yeah. And the biggest mismatch, let me just remind you of some of the teams that were in the Sweet 16, or not Sweet 16, the round of 32. North Texas, Abilene Christian, Oral Roberts. These are just some of the teams that are there. The biggest mismatch coaching-wise. You mean Mike White versus Oral Roberts? A guy that's taken his team to... I can't remember off the top of my head. Multiple Sweet 16s, though. I'm sorry.
Oral Roberts got a good coach, though.
They do.
He took Florida Gulf Coast to Sweet 16.
He was the assistant coach for Florida Gulf Coast.
Yeah, he's Andy Einfeld was that.
Oh, okay. I
believe.
Sorry, I'm getting confused with a story that we had on our website. Maybe.
Yeah, Oral Roberts got a good coach.
But anyway.
I get what you're saying.
Just the fact of that there's all these mismatches and you're going to go after Eric Musselman. I don't follow.
It's strange to, like, in the round of 32, like, all of the coaches that are left in the tournament are good coaches.
To make the tournament, you've got to be one of the 64 best teams.
And, like, why can't you, like, the coaches at the end of the day have the game's decided by players. Like, coaches can tell players what to do, put them in the best situations to win, but at the end of the day, it's players. Like, if you want to take Texas Tech because you think Texas Tech's defense is better than Arkansas's, say that. I just think that was a bizarre way to say that you liked Texas Tech in that game. And it burned him big time.
It did, and I think that's what made Arkansas Razorback fans mad.
And plus, even if he said Texas Tech's defense was the reason that they were going to beat Arkansas because it was better than Arkansas's, he was wrong on that too.
Let's get into that. Let's talk defense from Texas Tech from Arkansas. They have been underrated, I think, is not even the right word to describe Arkansas's defense and how well they have played recently and how little they've been talked about.
I think Arkansas's defense is a little bit, I don't know if disrespected's the right word, but it's definitely overlooked. Because, I before we started recording, I came in here, I was telling you about the story idea I got. I'm going to ask Eric Musselman about it because he's kind of alluded to it in the past. Arkansas scores at a really high clip, and so that's what all the talking heads talk about is Arkansas's offense. They score 82.5 points a game. They've got this guy who's going for this many points, this guy and this guy and this guy. They got so many offensive weapons. You look up Arkansas is number 10 in the country in defensive efficiency. No, who's talking about that? Nobody. It was the talk before the Texas Tech game was Arkansas is a really impressive offensive team. I've actually got this quote from Dan Bonner. They're a very impressive offensive team. They're a good defensive team, but their offense is among the best in the country at 82.5 points a game. Arkansas's defense is what's really winning them games right now. You telling me that Justin Smith holding Texas Tech players to 3 of 17 shooting when he's the nearest defender, like that didn't have an impact on the game? Devo Davis's defense didn't have an impact in the game. You know, when he's face guarding and denying full court, like 85 feet, he's denying Mac McClung, who's Texas Tech's best scorer.
It was huge.
Yeah, it was huge. And Moses Moody's a little bit underrated defensively too. Like I've written in the past about, you know, opponents' shooting numbers when he's the nearest defender. They're terrible. They're terrible. Arkansas's got so many good defensive pieces, and they're so connected on that end that is what is helping advance them, because they didn't want to play Texas Tech in the 60s.
Right.
But their defense is so good that they won a game against Texas Tech, who thrives in the mud in the 60s and in the 50s. They won the game because their defense is good.
They didn't allow Mac McClung to get into double digits. Like,
they put him on the line too much, but I think he took 6 shots.
So he didn't score double digits, which is your leading score. You denied him in the last minute. Arkansas's defense, I think, is criminally underrated. And this is, I think, one of the things that you can put on the coach, in the fact of Musselman has his guys so prepared. It goes back into the stat of him with 4+ days to prepare, how well his teams play. But even beyond that, like, he just can get into a scouting report, and the methods that he uses with the big sheets of paper and all of his Musselman-isms can get those guys to buy in and to understand and remember that during a game, this is what these teams like to do. It's really, really fascinating.
Yeah, people were fascinated with Texas Tech's defense, and that's what they wanted to use as their reasoning for saying that Texas Tech, as a 6 seed, was going to beat Arkansas as a 3 seed and advance to the Sweet 16. If you look at Ken Palm's numbers and their defensive efficiency, Arkansas was 11th going into the game, and Texas Tech's was in the 20s. And so it's like 2 really good defensive teams, but Arkansas's defense over the course of the season is better. So that argument that I'm going to take Texas Tech because their defense is good, Arkansas is good too.
Yeah,
even better.
Yeah, and I think that's something to watch out for. Is Oral Roberts plays really good defense. Let's pivot just a little bit.
Yeah, they have in the tournament
to preview in Oral Roberts. They play really good, but they also just traditionally have good offense. Max Abesmus, am I saying that right?
I think so.
Okay, I'm going to try and say that right. Leads the NCAA in scoring. The entire NCAA, this guy from Oral Roberts, Abesmus, leads. So, yeah, they're going to score points. But Arkansas limited him to 11, I believe, in their first matchup.
Yeah, second fewest points he scored in a game all year.
That's huge.
Obanor went for, or Obanor, I don't know how you say his name, but he went for a double-double when the first time that these teams met. But yeah, Arkansas limited Asmus. Is that how you say his name? I'm still
I think so.
On it.
I'll look it up here in a second
because it looks simple enough. You just call him Max Abmus, but Asmus. Yeah, he's so his last. So going back to February 27th, here's the points that he scored in a game: 41, 25, 22, 18, 23, 29, and 26. And he's gotten to the line, 10 plus times in 3 of those games. And so he's a problem. He's a big time problem. And he's got seven or more assists in 3 of those games, including 10 in 1. Oral Roberts' 2-man game has given people fits to this point in the tournament, and Arkansas has got to be on their P's and Q's when it comes to those 2 guys. And then I think you have to really focus in on, the supporting cast. You can't allow, option 3 to go for 15 to 18 points. That can't happen.
No, you can't. And this, by the way, just a little aside, this Oral Roberts team, their 3rd leading scorer on the year is R.J. Glasper. He's not going to play.
Yeah, he hasn't played in a while.
But former Arkansas Razorback that would be in playing the Hogs in this game.
He had a good game against Arkansas. I think he was in double figures when they played in Bud.
I mean, that's just like a given.
Right.
Former Razorbacks having good games against the Hogs, that's a given.
That's unheard of.
But I think Arkansas, I don't think will, but you can't overlook Oral Roberts.
No.
I find it hard to believe that 21 or 18 through 22, 23-year-olds are going to overlook a game now. The fact that they're in the Sweet 16, I think Musselman is going to pound that into them. But you surely can't overlook Oral Roberts to the fact of they're a good team.
Yeah. Like if you're not laser focused at this time of the year, then you're probably not still playing.
Right.
And so
Ohio State.
Yeah.
I mean, Illinois, basically the entire Big Ten.
Yeah. Yeah. Not a great look for the Big Ten. Not a great look for my bracket either.
No.
I had Illinois.
I had Illinois playing Iowa.
Yikes.
So
you're done then.
Yeah, I'm not winning our bracket league, by the way.
I should go ahead and give a little update on the bracket league. So Basketball Podcast of Mid-America has a ESPN bracket tournament challenge, and Jay Metz's rule is in sole possession of first place, followed by Hogs Nutrition, and then there's a big jumble for like tied for 10th, tied for 17th, 21st, 28th. Like, I don't think I'm in the running to win this one.
I'm
at
not.
All.
I'm just gonna go ahead and say it. I'm not. But Arkansas Oral Roberts will be a good game. I'm interested to see how they defend Abe Smith, because Arkansas, when they've had a player that has just been lights out, they've kind of gone with the double team to get the ball out of that guy's hands and force him to make mistakes. If you do that, as you said, Oral Roberts can also be led by O'Banner. So how Arkansas defends, I'm really interested to see what they decide to do against Abe Smith and O'Banner in that 1-2 game.
I think we're going to see a lot of Justin Smith, a lot of Jalen Williams together. And if those two aren't on the floor together, one of the two will be with 4 guards around him. And the thing is, O'Banner is such a tough matchup because you look at his KenPom page, he's taken the second most threes for Oral Roberts. Like, he's taking 113, he's shooting 46%. And so Arkansas is going to have a big on the floor who's mobile and can react and get out to the 3-point line and pay him enough attention. But at the same time, you got to have a guy who's mobile enough to, when he shot fakes and puts the ball on the floor and tries to get to the rim, you got to have a guy there. And then your help's got to be sound, and you've got to provide enough help, but you also can't, lag in recognizing shooters on the perimeter, because they've got plenty of guys that can fill it up, including Kareem Thompson. Like, he's like a guy that, unless you're an Oral Roberts fan, maybe haven't heard of, he's shooting 41% from 3 too.
So, all that being said, keys for Arkansas to the win against Oral Roberts.
Just keep O'Banner off the glass. Like, Jalen Williams needs to be big on the defensive boards again, and 10 rebounds, 4 assists in your first tournament start, in your first significant NCAA tournament action. 10 boards, 4 assists, first start since January 16th too. That was a memorable performance, and it almost makes it even better because he only scored 1 point, and so it's like he tried to score. Yeah. But it's almost like you look at the box and you see he's taken 4 or 5 shots, missed them all, and he's a headache on the glass for Tech. I mean, it makes it look like he was but it makes him look like big, tough, strong, rebound-only guy that makes a huge difference. And he made a huge difference. You need that to continue. Justin Smith's got to continue to defend without fouling. I thought he did that great against Texas Tech, especially on that last possession. I thought there could have been a whistle, but let it go. Which
was interesting because Merrick Musselman was all about that being okay. They were deny the 3-point line because he felt like if you got an extra 5 minutes that they were going to win the game.
Yeah, layup doesn't kill you.
So I thought that was interesting. But yeah, close call on the last play of the game. If you're a Tech fan, then you're obviously thinking that it's a foul. If you're a Razorback fan, you don't think it was a foul. There's a few of those games a few times in the game on one of the plays where Arkansas got looked at for an intentional foul, and then you almost go back and say, like, hey, can we look at this? And not call a foul at all.
Mm-hmm.
But that's not how it works, Scotty. That's not how it works. Keys for me, I think, can you limit ORU at the 3-point line? How do lower seeded teams stay in games a lot of the time is through getting extra points, whether that's offensive rebounds, which is another key factor here. Don't let them get extra opportunities. And then shooting the three. A. Smith shoots the three well. You're going to have to give up some of those looks, but don't give up more than, I mean, if you can limit them to less than 6, I think that you're going to win the game. 6 or less. Sure.
Yeah, they've made at least 9 in 3 of their last 4 games. And I mean, they hit 11 against Ohio State, 10 against Florida. Arkansas's got to keep that number below 10.
And those are extra points if you think about it. A trip down the floor, the team's average, if you're a good team, you're going to average over 1 point a possession. That's how you can get extra points in a game, is by hitting 3-pointers. And so I think Arkansas can limit them from the outside and then not give them second chance opportunities. Force Oral Roberts, who's just going to be a smaller team, force them inside and see if you can't bully them there. That might not work.
Yeah, they are a much smaller team, so that makes me believe that Arkansas is going to, counter with some small lineups. But at the same time, I think you might be able to squeeze a little bit of life out of ORU by going with your big lineup with Justin Smith and Jalen Williams. Yeah. Like that front line is, I mean, I've talked about it. People are probably tired of me talking about it, but they're so good together. They're so good.
I mean, Jalen Williams with a few passes against Texas Tech just showed you their chemistry together.
Yeah, unbelievable. Yeah, you hit the nail on the head. Their chemistry is awesome. They're so connected on the defensive end, and then that connectiveness on the defensive end translates, and they're so in sync with one another on the offensive end too. They may not have you might see Justin go off like he did against Texas Tech and Jalen kind of fall back on the offensive end, but he's going to still give you something, whether it's offensive boards or assists. And then on the other end, they're both going to be dogs on the glass. I mean, you can count on that. But you made an interesting point. Like, ORU is not big. They're not big. So the lineups that have worked best for Arkansas so far in the tournament have been 4 guards around Justin Smith and then 3 guards with Justin and Jalen. So those are the 2 that I think you can bank on seeing, and I'm not sure what role or impact Connor Bandover is going to have.
Just about to ask, does he get in the game?
He might get in just to see, if he can knock down a shot or 2, maybe contest a shot. Why not just put him as your goalie again? It's don't go outside the restricted area. But at the same time, that doesn't really work against ORU because O'Banner can stroke it from deep.
Right.
So I don't know who his matchup would be. So that kind of leads me to believe they're going with Justin and Jalen.
Scotty, some great information there. Arkansas versus Oral Roberts, 6:25 p.m. You're playing in prime time for the Razorbacks. As Jack Kinley would say, prime time is when the Razorbacks play. And it's going to be a good game. Arkansas are going to be matched up with the winner of Villanova and Baylor.
I think that Jack Kinley quote is going to live the same way that, Moses Moody's, the individual awards and all that are great, but I'm here for the confetti. Like, if Arkansas goes on and makes an even deeper run, those 2 quotes are going to live on for ages.
I
know I'll always remember them. Like, I will never forget the Kinley quote, and then Moses was just so stone-faced, cold-blooded when he said it a couple weeks ago. That was eye-opening.
It would be huge. It would be huge to stay all the way to the confetti. A season Arkansas would definitely never forget. But first, I got to get past Oral Roberts and then Baylor versus Indiana. Pardon me, Baylor versus Villanova. Indiana's not even in the tournament, even though the entire tournament was hosted in Indiana.
That's tough. That'll be tough to swallow.
Awkward. Well, if you're watching this, wherever you're watching, make sure to subscribe. You can subscribe on YouTube. Scotty and I will hopefully be back on Saturday or Sunday to give you a preview for Arkansas's next game in the NCAA tournament. If they make it, regardless if they don't, we'll be back the next week to talk just about things that are happening. There's going to be a lot to talk about. So subscribe, check out wholehogsports.com. We're going to get you totally prepared for Arkansas versus Oral Roberts, and then any subsequent games if those indeed do happen. So make sure to check us out, subscribe wherever you are watching right now. You can also check out the podcast version. There's a few extra things on there this week that we've added to the podcast version, so you can check that out as well. For Scottie Bordelon, I am Seth Campbell saying so long, and we hope to see you back here later in the week.